Here, I want to say something right here at the top. When it's weighted mean, okay, you're going to have tables with categories. First of all, whenever it's weighted mean, usually you have tables with categories. And it branches off into two different types. One that involves percentages, okay? And the other one, it's what we call repetition. Repetition, we're going to do the unit analysis. So for now, just copy this. It may not make a whole lot of sense, but let's say we keep on multiplying dollars and hours worked. And let's say the question wants hours to stay. What are you going to divide this expression by if you want hours to remain? Yeah, you divide by dollars. So for now, I'm just going to do this, and right now you might be like, huh? Right? Like, why is he doing that? But later on, when you go back to it, when it's repetition, I want you to do this unit analysis to see if you're doing this right. So that's the prelude, that's the intro, right? So weighted mean, usually there's a table with categories, and then it branches off into repetition or percentages. Okay. Let's do the easiest one first, the percentages. Okay. Weighted mean involving percentages. So what you want to do is, if you have a table with percentages, you want to check, I will use a different color for this part, check to see if a row or column adds up to 100%. If the answer is yes, you divide your final sum by 100. Okay? And here I want to introduce, and I want you to have this with weighted mean. Okay? Let me see, make sure it shows up. Usually I don't want you to get mad, but when it's this one I do. I want you to get mad. So M A D. So multiply, add, divide. Okay? So how are we going to do this here without making too big of a mess here? But when it comes to weighted mean, I want you to think of the things that you have right beside it, but I also want you to think of MAD, right? Multiply, add, and divide. That's basically what you do with a weighted mean situation. We multiply values, we add them up, and then we divide by something. You have to divide by something. So here it is. Here's the first example. This is a table. And notice that in particular it's got two different categories. Okay? So it says assignments, what your score was, 45%. Oops, didn't do so well. And the weight is 15%. Quizzes, score 39 overall. Oops, not so well, right? What are quizzes worth from the year? 20%. Midterm, score, pretty good, 85. Worth 25%. So every category, every score for every category has a certain weight attached to it. This is how I do your calculation for your final score, okay? What about exam? Exam, this student scored 90, so pretty good. And the weight is 40%. So you can clearly tell that this student said, I'm not bothering with this stuff that isn't worth a whole lot. I'll just study at the end when things really matter, right? That's what I'm seeing here, right? Because this is the heavier stuff. What is this? 40 and 25, that's 65% is comprised of midterm and exam. Now, what if this says calculate the average score for this student? Like, what is the average score? It would be wrong to just add up all these values and divide it by 8. That's not how you do a table like this, okay? The first thing you do is multiply. So we multiply across. Okay? So multiply them. You grab your calculator and you go, right, 45 times 15. That's 675. Then you go 39 times 20. That's 780. 85 times 25. 2,125. Can you tell that this number is a lot bigger? This is going to bring your score up quite a bit more than the previous two categories. Now 90 times 40, 3,600. Even more so, right? You can tell this is going to be the biggest impact on your mark. I will give multiply a color, whatever you choose to give multiply. I'll go orange. And I will just show, right, that is the first step I took here. I multiplied across like that. And then my second color, whatever you choose, what's the second step? Add, right? So you're going to add your answers. Okay? So plus, and so forth. So your mean, your average score, I will show this step here one more time. I will be okay if you don't do this. Personally, you'll be fine. And here's the last step, divide. So whatever you add, you get a number, and the last step is divide. I'm going to give this orange. Rain, you can close that if it bothers you. It bothers me a little bit. Anyways. Got it. What are we going to divide by?
8.
What's that?
8.
8? That is if you had added up these 8 values, yes. I want you to pay attention to this part. If none of these things were there, okay, no headings whatsoever, and you just said, Janice scored the following 8 marks in some sort of AC, then you would just add every single one up and just divide it by 8. Okay? But this is not single. You see categories, right? And you go mad, right? You multiply, you add, and here's where the kicker is. Do you notice that this is percentages? You've got percentages. Check to see if one of them adds up to 100. So let's do that together. I will do the top first. So 45, you can tell that it's not going to be. The top is 259, right? So this one, you won't, so far you're not dividing by 100. What about the bottom part? It does, right? 15 plus 20 plus 25 plus 40 adds up to 100. So you know how we're on standby? What are we dividing by? We're going to divide by 100. So divide it by 100. Why? Because we were dealing with percentages and one of them adds up to 100. Therefore, automatically, and by the way, 99% of the time it does add up to 100. One of them adds up to 100. So then you can just feel free to divide by 100. So add up the top numbers, you get 7180 divided by 100. So the final mark is 70.8%, 71.8% if you do categories. Okay, so we multiplied here, we added, and then we divide it by 100. That's as simple as it gets, guys. I want to show you, I had an old exam here. We'll do that later. So that's how you do one of those. Can I ask you to try that right away next door, page 40? It's asking for calculating the mean number of devices per household. And can I just add something here, because I don't think this is the greatest table, but the first row here is supposed to represent devices, right? And then households. Can you write that down? I know it's very small. Let me zoom into that. Can you see that? I like to have headings there. So devices, households. That's what these two rows are supposed to represent. And that should be the giveaway that, oh, this is a weighted mean situation. Not only is this mean, it's weighted mean. Right? All right, try that. Give it a try. See what you get. Okay, yeah, I just want you to be careful. Not all tables mean that it's going to be weighted mean. Okay? Don't all indicate. So for example, this is not going to be, I'm not going to give you this yet, but then you at least have this one right here. So if you get this AC, you'll know what to do in the future. Is that a table? Is that a weighted mean situation? How do you know for sure? No headings with a category or anything. You know, like you don't have like a row where it says these are devices and this is something else. Like you don't have that. You just have a bunch of values. Then it's back to the same old, just add them all up individually and then divide by however many you have in there. Okay, it's just a regular mean situation, arithmetic mean. So keep that in mind. So if you realize, oh, there's two different categories, these numbers are not in the same category, they mean different things, go mad, right? Multiply them first, and here you can do the average. If you add it all up, you get 558, right? If you add all of this up, that would be step number 2. Okay? You get that, and then you checked, right? You saw percentages, you added that up, and you got 100% there. So guess what? Divide. by 100. Okay. Oops, you can see that. There we go. So you had to divide by 100 in this case, so it would be 5.58 watt. Okay, this is where unit analysis comes in. Unit analysis. So let's just talk about what happened here. Every single time, look at these headings. What were you multiplying every single time? Devices and households. Okay. Devices times, we can go percentage. You were multiplying that every single time. What did we end up dividing by? 100, right? What units are attached to the 100? Percentage, right? So you actually divide it by percentage. Okay, we divided by the percentage there. So that means that this canceled out right there, and you were left with devices. So then you know without a doubt that this is supposed to have devices to it. I mean, you're only going to lose half a mark for units. It's not the biggest deal, but that's what you were supposed to have next to your 5.58 devices. Okay? Next, 40. This has no table. So you're like, wait a minute, you told us there's always a table. Unless you don't have a table. How's that? Frida earned the following grades. Okay? 4 tests and 1 term in their math class. If each test were worth the same percentage, what would her final grade be? So let's do that here. It would just be 85 plus 72 plus 65 plus 90 divided by what? 4. That's it. You're dividing it by 4. They're all the same weight. That ends up being 312 divided by 4. So her final mark would be 78%. B. This is where the weighted mean comes in. What was her term mark if the first test was worth 10% of the final grade, the second and third were worth 20%, and the fourth test 50%? So what if each of them have different weights? Different weights. Okay? Exclamation mark. Highlight. Okay? I would suggest maybe let's make a little table. You can go test, score, and the weight. So how many tests? 1, 2, 3, and 4. Correct? Let's make sure that shows up nicely there. Let's make this a separation. So what were your scores? We had 85%. This is all percentage. 85, 72, 65, and 90. The weight is also percentage. And the first test is 10%. The second and third, they're each worth 20%. And the fourth test is 50%. So you're making a table. We're making a table here. So let's do our let's get mad here. Okay. Don't get mad. Okay. So we multiply. So don't be fooled by this test number here. They're just saying, right? They represent there are 4 different tests. So multiply that out. That's 850. This is 1440. This is 1300. And the last one is 4500. You can tell that the last test has made the biggest impact because it was weighted the most. Add it all up. That's your second step. So add it all up. You get 8,090. And will this one add up to 100? No, right? But this one, 10 and 20, that's 30, 20, that's 50, and another 50. It does add up to 100. So let's just go and slap the 100 down here. So your average score is 80.9%. Which one do you prefer? Weighted mean or regular, no weights to it? In this case, weighted. Because the last, what if you had done really well though on the first one and you didn't do so well on the last one? Then you probably want regular, right? So you have to check. If they ask you which one did very well on the fourth test, which was worth the highest, right? Last test was weighted heaviest, which boosted the mark. I told you about the deal, right? If your last exam will overwrite both cumulatives if you do the review that I give you. So it's going to boost your mark if you do well on it. Oh, and time is almost up. I will leave this here. We're not going to do the repetition example. I'm just going to ask you to try. What time is it? I don't have a whole lot of time, but I'm just going to say 41. Just one last try, page 41. And make sure you have something on your study sheet about this. Specifically, the math part, right? And maybe the heading I gave you earlier. The heading there, I told you that it will be a table with categories, repetition/percentage. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. I hope you have a good weekend.